And joining me now is MSNBC legal analyst Neil Katyal, professor of law at Georgetown University and former acting Solicitor General, and Dave Ehrenberg, state attorney for Palm Beach County, Florida. Thank you both for being here. And I have to tell you, Neil, I'm incredibly cynical about this judge because, you know, we have friends like you, we have friends like Dave, and I can't think of anyone who takes seriously these motions that are before this judge. It seems like entertaining them at all is just a way to delay. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so Joy, I mean, look, federal judges can sometimes surprise, and that's unlike predictable politicians. And I think here many people's expectations for Judge Cannon were low, particularly because of her two rulings last year, appointing a special master, which was, to put it mildly, nuts, and was rebuked by the very conservative Court of Appeals that oversees her court really quickly with some really harsh language. So here, so far, Judge Cannon has done the right thing, rejecting one of Trump's motions, calling, as you said, the statute unconstitutionally vague, which is preposterous. But to me, the big concern is that Jack Smith today maybe won a battle, but he's losing the war. And I feel very much like it's just like the Supreme Court and absolute immunity. And the Supreme Court's agreed, as you said, to hear Donald Trump's absolute immunity case on April 25th. There is no chance that Trump is going to win and that the court is going to say he has absolute immunity. But what the Supreme Court did there is delay his trial for January 6 charges, potentially to after the election. And the same thing, I fear, is happening with Judge Cannon. She keeps kicking the can down the road. I mean, the fact that she had a day-long hearing today, Joy, on these two bogus issues tells you everything you need to know. I mean, the only thing that Donald Trump's arguments today warrant are an eye roll and a swift denial.
Yeah, I mean, and Dave, it's very hard, I think, at this point, given all of the politics from the Supreme Court on, not to view Aileen Cannon and also Mr. Herr, who, you know, clerked, I believe, for Judge Rehnquist at one point, Justice Rehnquist at one point, as auditioning, right? I mean, they're helping Donald Trump. He doesn't have, like, the most genius lawyers in the world. All they have to do is keep appealing and filing motions, and that's all it apparently takes to have justice delayed, which, in a sense, for the people of the United States and voters, is justice denied.
Yeah, Joy, I agree with you and Neil that Trump can win by losing. He can lose all these hearings and still win because his strategy is to delay things, to delay this out. Trump is nervous about this particular charge because it is the strongest case against Donald Trump. The Espionage Act, obstruction, they've got him dead to rights. His only defense is that he somehow declassified the documents in his mind like some Jedi mind trick. It's preposterous. But if he can keep delaying it, he expects to be president again. Then he can order his attorney general to drop everything. Then he can appoint Aileen Cannon to the Supreme Court.
Correct.
And although it seems like that Jack Smith won today because she didn't boot the entire Espionage Act claim, she postponed her decision. She denied it without prejudice, meaning that Donald Trump can bring it up again in the middle of the trial. And if Judge Cannon agrees in the middle of the trial, then double jeopardy attaches, and Jack Smith won't be able to appeal it to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, and then Jack Smith is done on that claim. So it's a temporary victory, a victory for now.
And exactly. And that's why I called it auditions. Mr. Herr and Ms. Cannon and may see themselves as Justice Herr and Justice Cannon when Clarence Thomas and Alito predictably resign if a Republican becomes president. That's just me. I'm not putting that on either of you. Let me read the letter from Donald Trump's lawyers to Congress. This was dated April 26, 2023. They said this: "We have seen absolutely no indication that President Trump knowingly possessed any of the marked documents or willfully broke any laws. Rather, all indications are that the presence of marked documents at Mar-a-Lago was the result of haphazard records keeping and packing by White House staff and GSA, so blaming them. The applicable criminal statute prohibits willful retention of national defense information, not mere possession. To prove willful retention, a prosecutor must first establish the possession was knowing." Now let's play Donald Trump talking about willful possession.
I can't imagine you ever saying, bring me some of the boxes that we brought back from the White House. I'd like to look at them. Did you ever do that?
I would have the right to do that. There's nothing wrong with it. I have the right to take stuff. I have the right to look at stuff. I took the documents. I'm allowed to. And by the way, they become automatically declassified when I took them. I don't know anything about it. All I know is this: everything I did was right.
Neil, that's why he's afraid of this case, because he's admitted he did it.
Yeah, and he hasn't been able to get his story straight with his lawyers, Joy. So, like, that's a really good illustration. His lawyers say, oh, there's no indication whatsoever that Trump willfully took the documents, and then he says it all over. I think even more damning for Joy is that, more damning for Trump, Joy, is that Trump was caught on audio tape basically bragging about having classified documents with a journalist and saying, well, you know, I've got these very highly classified documents and so on. I probably shouldn't show them to you, or some language like that. So, you know, that's why I agree. This case, it's in a way the strongest case just because it's so simple. I mean, anyone who's dealt with national security information, I was national security advisor at the Justice Department, knows this is the easiest case. You prosecute this stuff every day of every week. And it's not just that Trump took the documents. It's that he willfully retained them after the FBI, the National Archives, others said, hey, give it back. There are all sorts of shenanigans that happened, including, most tellingly, what employee number 5, who just went public on another network, said. I mean, the employee number 5 said, look, I was summoned to Mar-a-Lago and was told that I had to, you know, that I was there because we were trying to figure out whether the videotapes governing the storage room that oversaw the storage room would be erasable and how quickly they'd be erased. I mean, it sounded like a mob conversation. So Trump's charged not just with stealing the documents, he's charged with obstruction afterwards. And I think it's a damning case for him.
You mentioned him. Let's play him. His name is Brian Butler. He was employee number 5, as you so correctly said, Neil. Let's play him. And this is him talking about actually moving the boxes which contain national security secrets. Here he is.
So I left Mar-a-Lago. I texted him, hey, I'm on my way. He followed me. He pulled out and got behind me. We got to the airport. I ended up loading all the luggage I had, and he had a bunch of boxes.
You noticed that he had boxes?
Oh, yeah. They were the boxes that were in the indictment, the white banker's boxes. That's what I remember loading. And
did you have any idea at the time that there was potentially U.S. national security secrets in those boxes?
No clue.
One of the things, Dave, that I think we should note here is that one of the reasons he says that he did that interview on CNN is that Judge Aileen Cannon allowed the release of information about who the witnesses would be, which puts them in danger. It puts them in jeopardy of death threats et al., what you get whenever you talk about Donald Trump. And so he came forward on his own. But what he said is absolutely damning. He was one of the people not only moving the boxes, but as Neil said, he was one of the people who was talked to about hiding the security camera footage.
Yeah, it is pretty damning in itself that he was worried that the federal judge in this case, Aileen Cannon, would release his name and information, that he had to go forward on his own terms and get his information out there, let he be attacked by the MAGA world. So that's troubling in itself. But it's also troubling by the fact that Trump interprets the Presidential Records Act as meaning that he can take whatever he wants. He turns the whole act on its head. The act was established after Watergate to ensure that government records are owned by the people and the archives, not the president. So he can no more take government records and classified documents than he could take Air Force One or rent out the Lincoln bedroom on Airbnb. He can do none of these things. And the fact that Trump shows up himself to these hearings tells you how important he thinks this is and how he thinks perhaps he can get one over on Judge Cannon by reminding her perhaps that he's the one who appointed her.
Please don't threaten him with a good time. He might just actually try to take Air Force One if you say that and turn it into one of his failed private airlines. To you, Neil, let's go on the other side of this, because you do have another case that does seem like it is sort of proceeding along, and that is DA Alvin Bragg's case. Alvin Bragg now has suggested a delay. It's like this guy's got to be the luckiest dude in the world, Donald Trump. Bragg's court filing indicates that Trump's legal team ought a delay of 90 days this month, get a delay of 90 days after receiving 73,000 pages of records from the U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan. On Wednesday, the filing said federal prosecutors produced approximately 31,000 pages of additional records and represented that there will be another production of documents by next week. This trial was supposed to start March 25th. Can you explain why so late in delivering those documents? Doesn't everyone understand that there's a calendar and we need to get one of these trials at least done before the election?
No. Can't do it. I can explain a lot of things, Joy. I cannot explain this. This whole Southern District of New York investigation into Trump and Michael Cohen has been the gift that keeps on giving to Donald Trump. So first, this office didn't prosecute Donald Trump and only prosecuted Michael Cohen back when Trump was president. We know what that was about. But once Trump was out and Biden was president, this office still didn't prosecute him. And now this office has evidently delayed providing documents to Trump for some period of time, leading to this last-minute extension. Now, to be on the other side, the Manhattan District Attorney, Alvin Bragg, in his filing today said this is Trump's fault, that basically they requested documents from the U.S. Attorney's Office, got a whole bunch of documents that they turned over to Trump on June 8th of 2023, and that it was Trump's lawyers in January of 24, just recently, who sought extra documents. And so they're putting it on them. But, it sure seems like, maybe both of these actors are to blame, but the Southern District and Trump, I don't know. But the result is, and I think we're all antsy, the American public wants to know what the heck happened. Looks like Donald Trump got a really serious campaign finance contribution that may have swung the election for him, and that it was illegal every day of the week. And so that deserves to be looked at.
At least something deserves to be looked at, right? I mean, I think the American people deserve to know whether this man is a felon on any of these. Now it's 88 charges left before the election. It is stunning to me, and I'm sure stunning to you both as legal professionals, that it appears that he is so far getting away with all of it, and not having a trial is the same, essentially, as getting away with it. If you never have a trial, you can never be a convict. Stunning stuff. Neil Katyal, Dave Ehrenberg. What a world.
You're trying to buy TikTok.
I am, because this should be owned by U.S. businesses. There's no way that the Chinese would ever let a U.S. company own something like this in China. It would be a combination of investors, so there would be no one investor that controlled this. And the issue is all about the technology. This needs to be controlled by U.S.
Let me ask you
The app needs to be rebuilt in the U.S. It needs to be U.S. technology. I think there's a lot that could be done in 6 months.
Yep, that guy. Former Trump Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin, who thought this Scrooge McDuck photo op with a sheet of dollar bills and his actress wife by his side, and who pocketed $1 billion from the killer Saudi prince on his way out the door from serving Trump, that guy is the one eager to scoop up TikTok, which is the least surprising thing ever. He doesn't tell us who exactly will be part of the consortium, but I'm sure that the current TikTok investor and Republican billionaire donor Jeff Yass, who just so happened to have sat down recently with Trump a few weeks ago, will probably want a piece of the action, if past his prologue. It sure looks like these folks are looking to do to TikTok what Musk did to Twitter, Murdoch did in creating Fox, and Limbaugh did to talk radio. Joining me now is Robert Reich, who served as labor secretary in the Clinton administration. He is a professor of public policy at UC Berkeley. Robert, I'm glad that you were available, because you were the one person who was as cynical as I, and you were saying my thoughts on your social media feeds, because as soon as I saw that the vote came through to make TikTok sell itself, I'm like, oh yeah, sell it to which billionaire? What do you make of the idea that it's that billionaire who's a MAGA billionaire?
Joy, this is really a billionaire's ball that they're having over TikTok. And you really do have to ask yourself, do you trust American billionaires to guard your privacy and not manipulate you any more than you trust who? The Chinese or anybody else around the world? I mean, American billionaires are owning more and more of our giant media conglomerates, our technology, and having more and more power in our system. So I think the real issue here is power, like it is in so many other domains of our life.
They're so afraid, and they're Democrats who believe this too, and Republicans, that China is going to come in and start manipulating the minds of our young people. I'm sorry. I just read a story about Discord and Telegram being used to feed suicidal intent into young people. You've seen it turn up in terrorism cases that people are plotting negative action and violence on these platforms. Twitter has become a dumpster fire of Nazism and hate under a American emigre from South Africa. You've had Facebook that was used by the Russians to manipulate Americans during the 2016 election. I could go on. So how is TikTok any different?
TikTok is not any different. And Joy, I want to just stress with you something you obviously know, and a lot of people out there do know. We really do have to start looking at these giant technology platforms as public utilities. They have to be regulated like public utilities. We used to have a whole body of law in this country governing public utilities. These are monopolies. These are network effects in terms of monopolies, and they have a huge potential for good, but also a huge potential for damage. And we've seen the damage. And it doesn't matter who owns it. It doesn't matter whether this billionaire or that billionaire or the Chinese or anybody else. We have got to understand that in our democracy, we Americans have a right to treat these as public utilities and have them regulated as public utility.
They don't have to ban it. They could simply regulate it. But that would be more like doing their job. And just on the idea of, so the hitch in terms of trying to steal the technology is that TikTok's algorithms are controlled by ByteDance engineers in China who answer to Beijing. After Trump tried to force TikTok's sale, he later lost in court. Beijing placed export restrictions on its algorithms. TikTok's U.S. algorithm operations could be sold, but not the key technology that powers the app, meaning that the algorithm would have to be rebuilt, which would mean that TikTok would go down temporarily. But I think your point is much more important, because the algorithms in the hands of MAGA-friendly people that would make TikTok more like Twitter would actually not decrease the danger, right? But it would. Let me ask you this question. Could members of Congress can invest in this stuff too, right? So
absolutely.
If it's an American company, there's nothing stopping them from investing in it, is there?
No, and that's again a very important basic principle. Just because it's called an American company doesn't mean it's going to be functioning in the public interest. American companies don't naturally function in the public interest. Their purpose is to maximize their profits for their shareholders. And their shareholders are not just Americans. Their shareholders increasingly are worldwide. They're global. And so if these things are not regulated appropriately, if we don't understand that they have to be regulated, then again, it doesn't matter who owns them. The issue is who really has responsibility for making sure that they are responsible.
Absolutely. These things could be regulated. They don't have to be shut down. Lastly, the free speech aspect of it. There are a lot of people who wouldn't have a voice other than these platforms. What would it do to free speech to shut TikTok down?
Well, it would hurt free speech, obviously, in the sense that, and again, free speech, when we usually talk about the First Amendment, we're talking about the government and rights against the government. But with regard to these huge mega platforms, and they're giant, they're monopolies. Yep. They have got to be, the people do need access to them.
Absolutely. And we are out of time. I'm running into the next show, so I'm going to stop you. Robert Reich, thank you very much. I appreciate you. That's tonight's ReidOut on with Chris Hayes starts now.